Well, hello everyone, and I think this time I am going to be speaking to you from my dining room, but back to you in school. I know that many of you have been watching me at home, at your homes. I've even met mums and dads who've been watching me too. Sorry, I thought I looked a bit skew-whiffed then. But anyway, I've just had a thought because we're getting near to Easter, but we've just celebrated Mothering Sunday or Mother's Day. My mum always said to me, it's not Mother's Day, that's American, it's Mothering Sunday. And actually, she was kind of right. It is Mother's Day as well, of course, because it's a day when we celebrate our mums and the ladies who care about us, perhaps grandmas, aunties. Perhaps there are others who've looked after you and cared about you too. And we want to say thank you and to celebrate them. But the story of Mothering Sunday and why it's Mothering Sunday in history is, of course, goes a long way back. It belongs in the days of the monasteries, and in the days before there were schools like you're in. A monastery, a place where monks were, was also a main place of education. They were places of learning, and pupils had to stay there all through the term. And indeed, in Lent, because a monastery was a church in effect, the pupils had to observe Lent. They had to do without everything. But they thought, actually, we ought to give our pupils just one nice Sunday. So they called it, not Mothering Sunday actually, but Refreshment Sunday. They saw the church and the monastery, and some of the monasteries had huge churches and chapels attached to them. One or two have even become our cathedrals now. And that was their mother church. So Mothering Sunday is about Mother Church, but it's also because about halfway through Lent, just over, on the fourth Sunday of Lent, the abbot or whoever was in charge of the monastery would say, well, boys, I think you should go home now and see your mums because you haven't seen them for a few weeks, and we think it'd be a really good thing if you did. Sorry, girls, it was boys in those days. And so mums would get busy. And I just want you to think, what would you do? If I show you all these things, I've got lots of bits and bobs here. Now, I've got some baking margarine. I've got some caster sugar. And a bit too far away here for me to reach. That was silly, wasn't it? I have got some flour. I think this one has probably been used already because I'm getting flour all over the place here. And what else have I got? Oh, I've got some chocolate, some special chocolate that's used not just for eating and having fun with, getting flour everywhere, but also for baking with. And what we need if we're going to bake a cake is obviously a tray to bake it in, some baking powder, some vanilla colouring or flavouring, and a bowl to mix it all together in. And we've got lots of mixing together to do there, and a whisk, because to do that helps you to do all the mixing. Some of you probably know this really well already because you help your mums or grands or whoever it is that looks after you. Don't know about you, I need a recipe book as well. So I found some cakes. This is, I think, probably an Easter cake, but I like that heart, don't you? It's what a lovely cake. It's got some chocolate. I guess it's probably got some strawberry in it, bit of cream, and a little rose, probably a sugar rose on top. That looks really yummy. And of course, in the days, hundreds of years ago, when young men came home from their schooling at the monastery, their mums would bake them a cake. These days, we've taken it differently. We say it's a day for mums to sit down and have someone do something for them for a change. Someone to do the baking, the cooking. someone to make sure the rooms are tidy, and someone perhaps to give them a nice present as well. I hope all of you remember to give your mums a nice card, not an expensive present perhaps, but just a nice present, a little something which says, I love you, Mum, I love you, Gran or Auntie, whoever it is. We'd like to show appreciation for all the wonderful things you do for us. Of course, Mothering Sunday was soon over. The lads had to go back to their schooling and education. And we remember that actually, while we have days like that, that are days to be refreshed, there's also the hard grind of just getting on with life. Like we all have to go to school or go to our work, whatever it is. We also remember then today, not only people who've looked after us and cared for us, but I think too we think about people perhaps who struggle, who could do with someone to look after them and care for them. And maybe there's a tiny little bit of the story of Jesus' death where just before he dies, he sees his mum, Mary, looking very sad, and he sees his best friend, John, standing by. So he says, John, I want you to treat me, Mary, as your mum. And Mum, I'd like you to treat John as your son, because we need to keep those relationships going. Now, Jesus, even as he was dying, cared about his mum and his best friend. And we say thank you for all of those who look after us. But remember, ones who don't perhaps have anyone to look after them, and perhaps you know someone who's lonely. There are plenty of lonely ladies. Perhaps they live in your road or near you, or you know them some other way. Don't forget that you can help look after them. Perhaps you could take them a few daffodils or something small, just so that they feel wanted and loved. Perhaps there's somebody who finds it Mothering Sunday quite difficult for all sorts of reasons. Perhaps they're just lonely, or perhaps they're lonely because their children are no longer with them, or they were never able to have children. Don't forget all the people who are sad today, the people who need us to care about them. You don't have to make them a cake. Definitely you don't have to do that, although they'd probably like it very much if you did. But you can remember them and commit them to God. So take a moment to be quiet and think of all the people you want to say thank you to God for. Mums, of course, and grands and aunties and sisters and whoever it is, the ladies who look after you and are part of your life. But don't forget to say a prayer too for the people who don't have that kind of family relationship, who need our care still. Let's be quiet and think. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for everyone who looks after us, especially our mums and grands and aunties and whoever else cares for us and makes sure we have enough to eat and drink each day. Please bless them. Please help us to appreciate them, to say thank you and to help them where we can. And help us to keep an eye open too for people who may be lonely, who don't have the family network that we do and need our help and love. Amen.